Hello and welcome back to the show. Today I have Emily Geizer on the podcast. I met Emily. It feels like forever ago, but I think just over a year ago?
I think that's right. Yes.
Yeah, we met in Kathy Heller's, her podcasting group, and Emily and I both started our podcast at that point,
Woohoo.
and so, yeah, we've been podcasting, and I've been on her show, and now I'm so excited to have her on my show. Emily is a health and wellness coach. I love watching her videos and all of the inspiration that she releases out to people. So I can't wait to share all of her beautiful knowledge. Let's just dive into her chart a little bit. So Emily is a generator. So all of us generators out there, we know that sacral has to get fired up, and it kind of directs. It's like, ooh, is this bringing me joy? Is this not? And we're living from a place of fire and driving towards that goal. And then she is a 6-2, so that means she lived the first 30 years of her life kind of figuring things out. Got into that on the roof phase, which is part of the 3 phases of the 6 line, really figuring out what worked and what didn't. And now she's bringing all that beautiful knowledge to the world. That 2 line really is good at like having these natural abilities and listening to what people say. She's really good at is always guiding her back to what she's here to share. And then she is the cross of prevention. I always love this one. My dad's a cross of prevention. It's just really, really good at keeping everybody's individuality, right? And understanding like what could go wrong and how to correct it and seeing that bigger picture. And I think that she effortlessly puts this into her podcast and into how she shares all of this knowledge. Big 3 in astrology. She's got that Cancer sun, which is just really this like nurturing, this archetype of the mother, which is what really drew me to Emily. I felt comfortable right away with her, and I think you guys will notice that too. But then the Sagittarius rising, that's really always shooting for the stars and always looking for new and amazing ways to teach and share. And then this Virgo moon, which is why she's a health coach, right? Like the Virgo loves like the healthy eating and how do we figure this out and plan it and always kind of restructuring. And so she's using all of those talents to do what she does, between sharing on the podcast and coaching one-on-one. So welcome, Emily.
Thank you, Angie. So good to be here. I've never had an introduction like that. That was fascinating. I wanted to take notes about my introduction.
Yes, I always love to just because there's a lot of, and this is what comes with the territory of being an astrologer and human design reader. And I love listening to podcasts, but people send me podcasts and it's like, Arnold Schwarzenegger, did you hear his interview? My mom's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, mom, but look at his chart, right? Maybe that's not right for everybody. Maybe that's not right. Like giving that kind of commitment to every single decision maybe isn't right for everybody. And so it's really beautiful to understand that we are all individuals. And I really believe you understand this. Your chart points to this. And so we are all individuals, and it's okay to get lit up and have these ideas about how we want to live our life. And if it really excites us to try it, but never to look at somebody and be like, ooh, because they're doing this, I should.
Mm.
Because that's where we get a lot of trouble, right? We push and push and push to look like somebody else, and we're not living our authentic, perfectly naturally timed lives, right?
That's so good. It ties right into health and being given like these prescriptive ways of eating or exercising or meditating that everybody should do. And what I've found just personally and with my clients is that's not true. It's different for everybody. We bring so many other pieces into it that are individualized. So I love that we can have this conversation and understand each other so clearly right from the beginning.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And that's how I've always looked at health and wellness in every aspect as well. Can you talk about, because usually where we are now isn't what we started out with, right? Like, what's the arc of your life? What did you think you were going to be when you grew up? What did what kind of jobs have you worked in, and how did you get to this place?
Yeah, so interesting. Well, the first thing I remember really wanting to be was Jane Pauley on the Today Show. So it kind of cracks me up that now I'm doing a podcast because that's the closest I've come to that sort of like interviewing and understanding and highlighting other people. And I love it. And I feel like I'm tapping into my inner Jane Pauley because she was my idol. Um, but that was when I was very young. When the first job I had, like the first thing I consider being a career that I loved and it felt so true to me was I was a Montessori teacher for about a decade. Shortly after college, I went and did my Montessori training, and I absolutely loved that. It felt like a very good fit for me, and it didn't feel like a great fit for also raising kids because you think a teacher has a great schedule for raising kids, but that's not true because you also work nights and weekends and summers. So I decided to step back from that at that point, and the parents in my classroom were like, we still want your insight on raising our kids, like child development. That was something I was fascinated in because maybe it is this individualized approach, but I could really see the unique aspects of each kid and help parents know how to bring that out well with their children. So I started just kind of off the cuff parent coaching, which I developed into a business, and it was really around mindfulness. And I quickly discovered that I was talking primarily to moms at that point because, let's be honest, those are usually the people that take the lead with parenting. And I was finding that women were so like barely surviving, right? They were so stressed, running ragged that this there was a big gap between like what they wanted, how they wanted to be showing up and how they were showing up. And that's actually what gave me the insight of like, wait, the best way to make an impact on a family is probably through the mom's well-being rather than parent coaching. So I shifted it, and it was a natural shift for me because I've always been interested, as you as you saw, I've always been interested in health and wellness. I think it stemmed from my own struggles of feeling really fat as a kid. And I went on my first diet when I was in like 8th grade. And so I was always trying to optimize that, like learn about health, learn about wellness, like what's going wrong here for me. And that fixer mentality, right? For better or worse. And so I became just my bookshelves have always been full of self-help, diet, fitness less so, but like eating and how that impacts people. And so that was a natural fit to move into health coaching. So I went on and got my certification there. And obviously, my thinking around all that has evolved so much since then. But that's kind of my inroad into health coaching.
Yeah. I love that you started out as a teacher. I can see that so much with your cancer son and your joy of yeah, seeing kids as a individual, which is a very Montessori kind of viewpoint. And then yeah, that Virgo moon is always like, what about diet and lifestyle? What about
Yeah.
like always kind of thinking about that. So I love how you've tied it all together. And then and so you've done the health coaching for a while now, and then what made you to decide to start the podcast?
Wow. Well, when I first started listening to podcasts, I loved them. And I was listening to them also with an ear of like, I want to ask this question. Like I always wanted to participate in the podcast I was listening to. And so it was just a funny idea of like, I wonder if I would ever do a podcast. And when I understood the role it could play like in my coaching, it kind of fit together and made sense for me. And it was just it felt like a natural next step.
Yeah. No, I love that for you. And that's exactly what I did as well. Well, first podcasting started out as I wanted to kind of take a leap into this world of speaking and coaching and doing something that really lit me up. But I was working my 9 to 5 job and looking around, and they say you're the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And I was like, ooh. And so I really started to take on, let me read and listen to and become a part of the people and the energy that I want. And that's what really got me into podcasts. But then it started to get to a point where I was like, ooh, well, why didn't they ask that? Or why didn't they talk about that? Or I wish I could have somebody on. And so, yeah,
Yes.
that's exactly, yeah, what came to me as well. And of course, with that two line, I have the 6-2 as well. Sometimes you think, oh, anybody could do that, or but then I always had friends, and why don't you start a podcast? Why don't you? And it's like, nah, but then that's the two line, right? When people start saying stuff like that to you, you have to listen, right?
Mm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And take action. Okay, so let's just talk about nutrition and food. And I mean, this is something that I spent probably a good 15 years of deep, deep digging, and it can be kind of overwhelming for people, right? Like, I'm sure me and you love learning about it, right? I love learning about it. I've done every single diet there is, paleo, vegan, vegetarian,
Same.
you
Yes.
name it. I have done it, and the only thing I know for sure is nothing works for everyone, right? Is that anywhere near where you're at?
Yeah, I would say nothing works. No one thing works for everybody. And what you find works for you now probably isn't the same thing that's going to work for you maybe in 7 years. They say women go through these seven new phases every 7 to 10 years. And I've really found that to be true. Also, just to build on that, whatever, like if you're experiencing, um, an illness or something that you're trying to fix through health and lifestyle, what fixes it isn't necessarily what you need to maintain it. So there's so many nuances with it. There's definitely not one size fits all.
Yeah, I love that, because I would study all these people and they'd had found the diet, and then it was like, but I don't want to be on AIP forever,
Right.
right? Like, I
Yes.
was down to 5 foods at one point, and it was like, I I don't want to do this forever. There's something going on. So, how do you start to work with people to kind of find what works for them, and give them hope that they can just stop with whatever's going on?
Yeah. I definitely take a food first approach. I think food is absolutely foundational, and a lot of people see food as the problem, and it can be the problem, but food is also the solution. So that's the first place that I start, is just helping people understand that food isn't just something we're consuming to make us feel full and get through the day. It has so many other it has so much other value to it than that. So the way I start is with identifying. I mean, I'm a coach, so I like to have my clients identify where the places are that they feel like they can make the biggest shifts, right? Like what they're not happy with in their diet, and we shift that there. So that's often different for different people. I like to start with where somebody is. Most people can benefit from some things like drinking more water, adding more vegetables or more variety of food. We tend to like stick to just, like you just said, there were like 5 foods you could eat, and that was because you were following a protocol. But a lot of people just go to the grocery store and buy the same 3 or 5 vegetables every week.
Yeah.
So, vegetables have so many nutrients in it, and to have a nutrient rich diet, we need that variety. So, helping people learn not just that it's important to do that, but what I think is the piece that's really a game changer is when they want to make the changes from within. It's like an empowered decision rather than Emily told me I should do this, right? It's not me on their shoulder, but when my clients feel empowered and feel better by their choices and continue to make it.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you I'm always interested, because I've noticed quite a big shift as I've turned 40, like that, the hormonal shift and all of that. Have you noticed any tips or tricks, or have you squashed any of the myths of, like, oh, you're going to gain weight no matter what, or any of those things with aging?
Well, I think for sure we can line up with a lot of problems as we get older. And a part of it has to do with how we've spent our years prior to that. It's not like everybody at 40 is at the same place and is going to start gaining weight. But often our toxin load, we're at a tipping point at that point because of our choices up until then, right?
Yeah.
which is different for everyone. But hormonal changes certainly play a big role. And speaking about those phases of every 7 to 10 years, um, perimenopause, sure, does a number. I am living in it right now and just led a group through a hormone course recently. And what I love about what I love about our bodies is that diet and lifestyle is the biggest impact, right? Like diet and lifestyle is what wrecks our hormones. Like hormone imbalances are not a given. It's
Yeah.
not inevitable that we're going to experience them. However, our modern life is really hard on our hormonal health. And
Yeah.
so we kind of have to be countering those effects. And if we've been countering them all along, it's a little bit smoother. But if we've kind of ignored those things or not known to pay attention to them, it can hit us really hard when our hormones are shifting, or we have such a like a intake of xenoestrogens and endocrine disruptors that it just creates absolute chaos. So yes, I do think that hormonal changes are a real thing, and we have so much agency in feeling better. And I just got a great email from somebody who was in my course a few times ago, and she says that just through changing diet and lifestyle pieces, just a few, she's like, I've just added in a few things that I was able to add in because she's got young kids, and we only have so much time to change our diets and our lifestyles, right? And she's eliminated her hot flashes. It's like we can do those sorts of things. We don't have to medicate, and medicine is there for a reason, but it has a lot of side effects. So
Yeah.
I love when we can do things that don't have such negative side effects for us.
Yeah. It's always very interesting to me that people want a pill, and I'm just it's something that I struggle with. I mean, I guess lucky for me, I have a lot of natural anxiety towards going to Western medicine. So I don't tend to think that that's the answer, right? But
Yes.
for a lot of people it is. Let's just go to the doctor, they'll give me a pill, but with that pill they don't talk about the side effects that are going to, turn into this and this and this, and we're going to give you more and more pills until you're pretty much dependent. And then there's not a lot somebody like you can do when they're on so many medications. Yes, you can help with some of the things, but then you have to start being careful when you when you've got all those medications.
That's true.
So yeah, if you can catch it before it gets to that point, there are so many beautiful avenues that we can go to. And the funny thing is, and it's wonderful to have coaches like you out there touting real food and real lifestyle changes, because these are all free, right?
Yes. Yes.
I thought about writing an article at one time, the best things in life are free, because they really are. It's like clean water, right?
Yeah.
Saying a little something, prayer into your water or something like that, meditating, walking in nature. Like, how many of these things, if we just incorporated a little bit, are free? I mean, I'm sure you've come up with, you have your five things to do. What's that list look like?
Well, I mean, you just mentioned like some of the best medicines that are all free, right?
Yeah.
Hydrating, making sure you're adequately hydrated, moving your body, getting out in nature. That is available to us 24/7. And I know some of us have easier access
Yeah.
to natural places than others. But that is a really, really powerful medicine that I feel like is not talked about enough. And I do want to say that if any of your listeners don't feel like they have access to like woods, you can still take a walk outside and feel the breeze on your arm. There must be trees around. You can listen to birds, and bringing plants inside also is so helpful for just our stress levels to start with, but also our microbiome and other things as well.
Yeah. So there's so many options that you can just subtract a couple of things, like you mentioned the phenoestrogens, which, oh my gosh, when I'm taking my walk in the evening and I smell everybody's downy, you know, the cloud of downy,
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many things that you can just make little tweaks. And nowadays, when I was starting out on this journey, there weren't a lot of options. My son and I have been gluten free for a long time, and yeah, just I'm always been sensitive to fragrance, and it's like now there's so many options. I can go to Target and get a non-scented,
Isn't that amazing? I know.
yeah,
Yes.
and
At the same
yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
at the same time that there's all these scent-free options, which are the best options, uh, there's also these like boom of maxi scents, like wash your clothes in this and it will smell like it for forever, and every room you walk in will smell like it. And yeah, those are major endocrine disruptors. So I'm glad you're bringing up the fragrance piece, because it's not just food, right? When we're trying to be healthy, um, or even losing weight, the many of these endocrine disruptors are something called obesogens, which actually make us hold on to more fat. So fragrance plays that role, which is, I think, is just like wild to think of that.
Yeah, as we slather on the lotions and put them in our wash,
Yeah.
and spray it in our homes and light it in our candles, and it's just it's madness. My husband teases me a little bit because if like the sports, my sons are in sports, and we bring home the the
The
the
stink.
athletic wear, and I wash it like 5 times
Yeah.
before I'll even let my kids wear it, and I'm just like, it never goes away. It's just interesting to think about putting that in on your skin, which is the biggest organ,
Yes.
that takes these into our bloodstream, into our bodies. So yeah, there's so many little changes that are really easy now. That's what I love, is like, as much as the world has gone, I always see that as much light as there is, there's darkness, right?
Yeah.
As
Yep.
much of these terrible foods and terrible things, we're seeing a rise in a better option. It's easy, we don't have to sit at home all day making our own soaps, or
Yes.
and then maybe that could be fun. It could be a fun thing, or maybe you want to save money. There are a lot of affordable ways, but you don't have to, right?
I think it's so true. I think that it can quickly become overwhelming, a discussion around health and wellness, right? And I am really passionate about keeping it simple, because I don't think it has to be a complicated scenario. I think the complicated part is like a money making scheme, but health does not have to be complicated. And really, if we just focus on things we have control over, which is what we put in our mouths and what we put on our bodies, as far as like ingredients and toxins, that plays a huge role. There was a study, this is actually fascinating, I think. There was a study that they removed, they put they used clean beauty on this group of people, meaning it was free of phthalates and parabens and fragrance, because that's part of phthalates, and for 28 days, and it turned off 74, um how do I want to say this right? 74 genes that were like switched on towards, this is like a really simplistic way to talk about it. I'm not a scientist, but that were like switched on toward, the gene expression was for cancer, and it turned it off. 28 days to turn off 74 genes that are, like geared towards cancer. That's remarkable. That's what
Yeah.
I mean. We have so much power over our health and wellness. Not total power, of course, but we can be doing a lot.
Yeah. And very, very simple things. It's just changing the mindset, right? And that's what we talked about before this. And that's what I always focus on. It's like taking, even reading the Atomic Habits. Have you read the
Yes.
Atomic Habits? Yeah, it's such
Hmm.
a beautiful way to find ways to incrementally change things and not to overwhelm. And I was listening to him on a podcast the other day, and he was talking about how it's like, make it easy, right? Just think
Yes.
about putting your tennis shoes on before you think about the run or the walk, or put the tennis shoes somewhere and put them on, and then start walking. And then you can think about what you have to do, instead of this overwhelm of like, this is all, or I I've been juicing every day. So maybe it doesn't look beautiful that my juicer's out on the counter and be in the drying rack every single day, but if I put it in my cabinet, I'm not gonna do it, right?
Yes. Yep, you have to make it attractive, easy, right there, no excuses. Yes, I think developing habits are what create our life, right? So choosing one or two simple habits to start. I'm with James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, like make it short, just something you can do for 2 minutes. And of course it can grow. I was just talking to a client this morning who was struggling to get regular movement into her day.
Yeah.
And it is literally start with 2 minutes. Not that you're going to be doing 2 minutes for forever, but once you can set aside time for 2 minutes, you can grow that into 5 minutes. And once you feel the benefits of 5 minutes, you'll want it to become 10 minutes. So she's like, I've been listening to what you said, and I go out and even if I don't want to, I bundle up for a 10-minute walk. But she's like, always at 10 minutes, I want to keep going because I feel better, you know? So we do need to we need to build the reward into our habits so we want to keep doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, we are dopamine loving creatures, right? And so
Yes.
we get that dopamine. I mean, that's why video games are so attractive. You can hear the pitter patter of the steps, and there's always something like some kind of feedback. And it's like finding ways to put that in our lives, that instant feedback of, ooh, that was good, right?
Yes.
And so finding those things that do kind of bring us a little bit of joy, because we're here to be joyful. We're here, it's not supposed to be hard. Life is not
Yes.
supposed to not be joyful, but making these habits easier. I want to talk about some of the things the kind of biohacking things you've done. I saw a video and I started doing it every once in a while, doing the dipping your face in the cold water. And what are some of the things that you've been trying out or doing or adding to your routine?
Oh gosh, I'm always switching it up. I would love to talk with you about cold immersion. I've been having fun with that lately. Um, and I have so many mixed things on it, but one thing I've been changing just recently is when I have my coffee in the day. So to the point of like our bodies change, and I've noticed as my hormones are changing, coffee, I don't think first thing is working for me. Maybe it never did, but I'm noticing its impact more now. So choosing to have it after my breakfast and I'm just playing. Like I think part of exploring is just being curious, right? So how does this impact me? Do I have more energy? Does my digestion feel better? Does my blood sugar feel more balanced? Whenever I'm trying out what you're calling biohacking things, I'm always looking to my body as the roadmap. Like, how is it responding? And that's the biggest clue. And that's why I teach my clients is like, these prescriptions may or may not work for you, but you have to tune in and see how it's working for you. And guess what? Weight is not the only measurement, nor is it even the most important measurement out there, right? There are lots of um, like the biofeedback that we get. There's lots of ways to look at our bodies to see if something's working or not. I'm glad you've been trying the cold plunging. Or the face plunging. I I did that. So before I had my podcast, one of the fun things, like you said, that there were people that you wanted to talk to that you were like, "Ooh, maybe I'll have a podcast." Well, I was watching this woman. She's under the handle Red Hot Chili Dippers. If anybody is listening and curious about cold plunging, you've got to check out her Instagram page. She lives up in Burlington, Vermont, and cold plunges, like cuts out the ice out of the lake and cold plunges, like real cold plunging. I'm in North Carolina, so I don't get those experiences. But when I interviewed her last year, I got to interview somebody that was like, "Yay, I've been watching you for so long." And I was really inspired by what she said, even though, as I shared in an email this week, because I just did a cold plunging episode on my podcast yesterday, um, I used to be so cold adverse. Like, I don't want to feel cold. I'm from the north, so I enjoy the change of seasons, but I'm going to be totally bundled when I go outside. And then I'm going to come in and get a heating pad and a warm drink and like really warm up at the fire with my dogs. Um, so I was terrified of cold plunging. My husband's been somebody who has cold plunged we didn't call it that. We called it crazy. He would just get in creeks in the middle of winter and it seemed insane and I never did it. Um, but after learning about the benefits, I was like, okay, I try a lot of things for my health. Let me just see what it's like. And I started with face plunging and I was like, ooh, this feels kind of good. And the next time my husband went cold plunging, I went with him. And I have the video of it. I was just watching it the other day. I was like very demonstrative in my I was like I was probably cursing him out like crazy the whole time, you know. And we got out after like 2 minutes. But then I turned around and I got back in after like all that angst had left me. And so last winter I became a cold plunger and we did it several times a week and it is remarkable. I think the most surprising thing for me isn't the incredible mood boost and like mental clarity because those things are profound. But what I was most scared about was that I would never warm up again because we're going in really cold water in like 25 degrees outside, right? Like first thing in the morning when it's very cold. It just sounds terrible, I think. So I thought I would never warm up that whole day. But what I noticed last winter was I think I was like warmer than I had ever been. My body wasn't going through these, I didn't feel cold all the time in my house, like wearing hats. I wasn't having that experience. And that is one of the benefits of cold plunging is the thermogenesis that it creates. So the very thing that I was most scared about, it actually was helping address, you know? So I think that's like a really cool thing. I love that. But the funny thing about biohacking, Angie, is I think we're our modern lifestyle is so about overstimulation, over stress, overgoing, never resting, and then we add in all this biohacking to like undo all that. So I'm a little bit at odds with it because um I'd rather get to the root cause of why we need all this biohacking, right? So I was thinking about this last week, like, what is that about? And then I thought, well, you know, our ancestors didn't have warm water. They were only ever in cold water, right? So I don't know that it's like a newfangled wellness trend like some of them are. Um, but I do know it feels surprisingly really good. I haven't
Yeah.
done a whole lot of other like things like the red light therapy and infrared saunas and stuff. I'm very curious about them, but they're really expensive to access. And I'm just a minimalist. I'm a little closer to the earth that way.
Yeah, we looked at your chart earlier and you have Capricorn on the second house, which is like earthy, right?
Hmm.
It's like what is really necessary for spending money on
Oh,
and things
interesting.
like that. So so yeah, that's very interesting. I love looking at sometimes you can find people's charts online or whatever, and some of these biohackers that spend all of this money, they have a little bit more like spend it on the second house and maybe less earth, maybe more what's the science say. And so it's just interesting to see everybody kind of living their truth and you've kind of innately known, oh, this works better for me. And you have a lot of earth in the midheaven too. So you're showing us how to live healthier lives with the grounding minimalism and let's go back to nature and what the body can do. So yeah, you're just showing us your unique truth through having that inner guidance and inspiring us to try some of the things that work for you. So I love
That's
that.
cool. That's helpful to hear. It's affirming.
Yeah, yeah. No, I love I do the cold showers sometimes during the winter. It can get pretty cold, during the summer. The pipes don't
Yeah,
let it get as
exactly.
cold. But during the winter it does. And so I'll do that. I'll do that a couple times. A lot of the biohackers are men. And so I
Yes.
really do struggle to find really good information on women, just like you, the coffee in the morning. That's a hormone thing, right? Women
Yep.
we wake up and we don't want our cortisol to go super high right away. So yeah, so I've been trying to do the celery juice and walking a little bit and having like a nice slow morning, and then having some protein, and having my coffee with a good amount of protein,
Yes.
so your hormones don't kind of spike and things like that. So it's really not only, where you're getting your information, but is the information coming from, just a man? Are you a woman? Are you, or even, I love the blood type diet. I don't live, like everything is in stone. But I look at it, right? I look at some of the things that the blood type diet shows that I digest better. And usually it kind of lines up and
Yes.
kind of gives me a jumping off point sometimes, because it can be overwhelming.
It can. I think I'm glad you mentioned that. I also love the blood type diet, and early on, like when I was in college or right out of college, I somebody gifted me an Ayurveda book, or somehow, I was always in the self-help section trying to learn new
Yeah.
things. So I learned about Ayurveda and the different constitutions there, the different doshas. And I think that's what introduced to me at a very appropriate age when I was trying to do what everybody else was doing and I wanted to look like the other people looked, like how we are all so different. And I'm a kapha. And so I know that like my weight will fluctuate. That's like the first sign to me if something's working or not working. For other people, it's a totally different sign, right? But weight is my sign, and that's been helpful for me to be a little more, what do I want to say? Like a little less judgmental of myself and loving of myself and appreciative of my body, because it now that I understand how to read that, I don't beat myself up about it. It's just feedback and information that something that I'm doing isn't really working well for me, and I can make adjustments, rather than um, feeling reactive and like I need to starve myself to get back to a shape,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
It
Yeah.
does. It makes so much sense. I remember reading something about, how fat kind of protects us, right? How it kind of surrounds toxins and protects us.
Yeah.
And that was really eye-opening for me, that it's not like here to hurt me, it's here to help me, right? And so I have to help it do its job by doing my
Yes.
part, but I can be really grateful that my body's working, because some people's body don't wrap it in fat, and then what
Yep.
happens, right? They could have a far deadlier consequence than mine wrapping it in fat, right?
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah, so really being thankful for the body for doing its job, and what we've put it through, and I'm very body conscious every day, right? Like waking up, and the first thing I do when I wake up is I lay in bed and I say thank you, thank you, thank you to my body, right?
Mm.
Thank you, thank you, I love you, thank you, thank you, thank you, before I even get up, and then try to do some nourishing things. For me, it's been either lemon water with a little bit of cayenne pepper, to kind of warm my body up because it's winter.
Yeah.
Or I've been doing the celery juice. But yeah, I'm always playing with what feels good and kind of intuitively checking in with what my body wants right now, right? What's your morning routine been like?
Mm. Um, well, as you know, I don't like to do anything the same. So
Me
I
too.
have this structure that I have a lot of wiggle room but I get up quite early, and I always hydrate first thing. And sometimes that hydration is like a green supplemental hydration. Sometimes it's lemon water, sometimes it's warm water, but it's hydrating. And then I get out my mat and I just move my body for about 10 minutes. And that's not about exercise at that point. It's really about checking in. I, it's about waking up, moving my lymphatic system, moving my digestive system, seeing like, how's everything feeling? Are there aches? Are there pains? What needs to be tended to? And then I journal. I add gratitude into my journal, and then it's like family time, dealing time, and after that is my movement time. The first thing I do though, I kind of skipped over the hand on the heart. I say, I love you. I love you, Emily, first thing in the morning. I get up, splash my face with cold water, Ayurveda technique I learned long ago. And that just night is a nice way to move out of that slumber. And then I scrape my tongue and then I go downstairs and hydrate. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love all of those things. Actually, I always forget I have the tongue scraper and I'm really good for a while, but I have that kind of 15 extremes too, where I'm really good at a habit and then I move on to a new habit and then I sometimes lose good habits
Uh-huh.
with my extreme.
Your
It's
interest.
very interesting. Yeah, if anybody is into looking at their design, if they have that 5 line, they're really good at routines make them safe, right? Doing the same routine over and over again is very safe and good for them. The 15 really wants more variety. So if you have that 15, which we both have, it really loves and thrives on variety, right? Having variety, and that could be really a harmful message from other coaches out there, right? You have to have your, do your miracle morning, and it has to look exactly this way every single day. And if you're not doing it, then you're not maybe you're not trying hard enough, or you're not using your willpower or something like that. So I think that really understanding yourself, you can still be a health and wellness person and still have a routine without it having to look exactly the same.
I agree. And I think, if you know what your overarching goal is or what you're moving towards, you can always be moving towards it in so many different ways, in how you choose to dress and how you choose to prepare your food and how you choose to show up for your meal and how you choose to work. And, it can always be right there, but it is kind of a muscle that you need to develop.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah, just tap in. I would say everybody should just tap
Happy.
into whether they like variety or whether they like to have a really good routine
Yeah.
and have an overarching goal, and every road that leads there is at least you're setting that intention, right? I always
Yeah,
think
so
intention
true.
is so powerful.
Hmm. My husband, I say he's like a robot. He does the same, like he's very regimented in how he does things. I don't even understand it. It used to like make me mad. It just seems so robotic and crazy, but it really works for him. He thrives with it, and um, yeah. But it also was helpful for me to see like I actually don't want that. Like that doesn't.
Yeah.
It's not interesting. I get quickly bored. It feels dull.
Yeah.
But for him, it provides important structure. Yeah.
Oh yeah, my husband's the exact same way. If work change it, like he has to get up at a different time, or he had to go out of town to do this conference, so his routine was off. He was like, "They just got me," it was 2 or 3 days. He was like, "They just got me into a new routine, and now I got to go back." He thrives on routine, right? And so he always, yeah, used to. I think he was more annoyed with me than I was with him that I couldn't have the same routine, or I don't
Mhm.
even, cook the same way or cut things. I'm like, that's just me. That's who I am.
Yes.
So let's just talk about your podcast first, and then we'll talk about your coaching. But tell us about the podcast, and what are the themes, and have there been any really interesting guests that people should check out? What's going on with that?
Oh gosh. Ugh, I've loved my guests. I feel so lucky. You were one of them. Thank you for being a guest. Definitely check out Angie's episode for sure. Uh, so my podcast is called You to What? And it is called that because it's based on a word called eudaimonia, which is like an ancient word that just means wellness for your highest good. And eudaimonia also, in that wellness for your highest good, it's also very individualized. Like what helps one person flourish isn't the same as another person. So I just love that when I discovered that. And I do mostly interviews. I've been doing some solo episodes lately, but I've had this podcast now for a year. As I know you're approaching a similar
Yes.
date, congrats to you. It's just been the most fun. I have most of my guests have been women, and they are the mission of the podcast is really to help people see how much agency they have in their own health and well-being. So I've had one of my more popular episodes has been on like cycles. So there was one about like womb wisdom that was really popular. Of course, you and human design. I've done astrology. We've talked about blood sugar and um, like easy cooking in the kitchen. I had one of my favorite authors on who wrote the book The Healthy Deviant, which is an excellent book about you kind of have to be deviant in this modern day living in order to be healthy, like I mentioned, in the beginning. And oh, I mean, I wish I had all my guests right here listed out because there's nobody I wouldn't mention as
Yeah.
being awesome. I've really feel so blessed by the discussions I've been able to have. Um, and what was the next? What did I answer your question?
Yeah, yeah. No, and I listen to your podcast. I love the guests that you have as well. So I would definitely it's a strong, go check Emily out. And then I just kind of wanted to hear about how what you do for coaching and like one-on-one you do one-on-one and you do some groups. Like tell people about what you offer in that.
Yeah. So, well, what I would love to offer your listeners is a free nutritional audit. So I said I take a very food first approach and it's individualized what people need. So an audit is not prescriptive, is not one way, but I will send Angie a link so that she can add it somewhere so you could sign up for a free nutrition audit. So to the point of so many things are made for men. What I find is like in health and wellness and diet culture, especially, it's all based on men. And as women, we are so different because of our hormonal cycles, right? So men's hormones are run um, on a 24-hour cycle, and our hormones run on a 28-day cycle. So obviously, you're working with a really different physiology with that. So learning how to sync to that is an important part of wellness for women. And I love women to feel empowered in know where they are in their cycle, be empowered with how to make it work for them when things, if a period is especially bad, that's just really good information on something that's awry that you can shift for the future. Uh, I really have what I think of the tool, my pillars are around food and habit forming, and then what I call rewilding your mind, body, and home. And that's a really about undoing the harmful effects of our undoing the harmful effects of modern living to live in sync with our bodies.
Yeah.
Um, and I do that through my Mind Body Thrive program, which is a one-on-one program. I help walk people through this in 6 sessions, and um, yeah, that's the main one. So I work with women one-on-one. I have offered group coaching programs before, especially like the hormone course. I also offer a free sugar shake off. It's a 5-day program several times throughout the year. That's really popular. And I have a Facebook group where people can just join and um, it's free and you can just be in community around health and wellness, which I think is important. As women, we feel like we need to DIY so much. Like you and I are both like natural learners and researchers and readers. And so I know we're both inclined towards that. But I think a lot of women are inclined towards feeling like, one, what I should know how to do this. This shouldn't be so hard, right? Like we should ourselves with all this. And then it's hard to ask for help in
Yeah.
order to feel good. And I really want to destigmatize that because I think that we are meant to be in community and we heal and thrive in community. So I think it's really important to like walk alongside each other in this path. And I just find that my clients who all come to me like, I've been putting this off. I've been thinking about you a long time. It's been years that I've want, I get those sorts of things. And then like within 2 sessions, they're like, why didn't I do this sooner? I didn't need to wait so long. So it's a really, I feel so fortunate that when people trust me to be able to kind of be their guide in that way. It's a real honor and privilege and also super fun.
Yeah. Yeah. And you have in your chart, you have this really strong ability to create a beautiful community for people. You have that Cancer, that nurturing side, but you also have this channel that really brings the right people together and brings a really good community. So if you are looking for community and you're really connecting with Emily's message, and maybe you've only got half of that and you're saying, where's my community? Where's my people? If this message is for you, then yeah, go join Emily because she's got a really amazing way of kind of holding people in that community in a beautiful way. So I'm super
Thanks.
excited. I will share all of that in the show notes so people can find you and maybe just stalk your reels for a little bit. I always love when they come up. They make me super happy in my Instagram and different places. So yeah, just check Emily out. I'll put all of that information in the show notes. You can always check us out on YouTube now as well if you want to watch this instead of listen. So yeah, lots of great ways to connect with you and maybe just dip your toe in the sugar shake off and see that you can make these little changes and then set up that audit with you and see what you can offer.
Awesome. Yeah, for sure. Reach out. I love to connect with people and yeah, thank you for this conversation. It's been great connecting with you today.
Yes, yes. No, it's been on my to-do list forever and we've kind of gone back and forth. And so I'm really excited to get to connect again as one of the first people that I met in the podcasting community and got to read your chart so long ago. It's been such a pleasure. So thank you again for coming.
Thank you so much.